So, fun fact, I used to be a fan of Rwby. It was one of my favorites and a series I had high hopes for when I first saw it. However, I eventually fell out of it for multiple reasons. Chances are you heard some of these complaints about the original series: overpowered characters, not wanting to entirely go into dark topics like racism with the faunus characters, and overall, the writing felt inconsistent in the series. Like when they teased Raven and Yang talking in the after credits of Volume Two's finale, and then acting like it never happened. Not to mention, the fandom can also be toxic if you dare say anything about Rwby being bad. The most prominent example is Hirohi, a former fan of the series. I know not all Rwby fans are like this, some are actually pretty awesome. The problem is that when you criticize this show, it feels like you have an angry mob wanting to tear you limb from limb. My point in bringing this up is that I never planned on giving Rwby another chance. It left a bad taste in my mouth and I wanted to move on to a better series. However, I heard that Rwby was getting an anime, which was being made by one of my favorite studios, Shaft. For those unaware, Shaft was the studio that made Madoka Magica, one of my favorite animes. As much as I hated admitting it, it made me interested in Rwby again. I was still cautious because I hadn't forgotten my problems with the original, but I was willing to give this series another chance. So how was the anime, and is it worth giving Rwby another chance for anyone else who's left the fandom? Well, it's a mix-up at this point. There are some things I like that it does differently, and some I dislike. To start, I'll talk about the things I liked. I liked that the character introductions took place in episode 1. It may seem small, but it makes it feel more like all four of them are the main characters instead of just Rwby. Additionally, they added more context to one backstory and more depth to another. For the former, look at Weiss. Weiss takes on the giant armor she fought in her reveal trailer from years ago in the first episode. However, now we see that she's fighting it to get her dad to agree to let her go to Beacon Academy. Not only that, but Winter is also there to see the fight and assures Jock that Weiss isn't finished despite being knocked down. It gives more context to a battle we saw instead of just having this fight to look cool. I'm all for having great fight scenes, and it's evident that's one of the things Rwby wants to go for in their episodes. However, I love the context of why certain fights are happening, and it could give more background on certain characters. It was also nice to see Winter being supportive of her little sister, showing why Weiss looks up to her. The other example I was talking about in terms of having more added to their introduction is Yang. Again, in a reveal trailer, we just got her being in a bar fight and revealing she was Rwby's big sister. In Ice Queendom, we get the opposite. Yang is the only one of the girls not to be in a fight during episode 1. However, we get a nice moment between her and their father, Tai. Tai tells Yang how Rwby can't grow on her own because she always has Yang to depend on when she needs her. It adds more to Yang being the protective older sister and learning she needs to step back so Rwby can stand on her own. It also makes it better when Rwby says on their way to Beacon that she has Yang and doesn't need friends, leading Yang to push her to make new friends. It also felt better because in the original, Yang just leaves her alone and says she's going to hang out with her friends, which we never saw in this series. I know someone might point out that the budget for the original was probably why that was the case, but taking this path not only adds more depth to Yang, but also was cheaper since you wouldn't have to worry about making and introducing new characters, or to have the studio forget about them and act like they never existed, which RT did. The last thing I want to talk about is I like that the series has more of a serious tone to it. I know some fans aren't happy that it's not comedic like the original, but I love that serious moments stay serious instead of having a joke thrown in. The best example is Weiss and Blake fighting about the White Fang. In the original, they do a gag where it goes from them arguing in the street during the day to arguing in their room at night. In Ice Queendom, the argument is short and straight to the point of Weiss revealing why she hates the White Fang, and Blake revealing that she's a faunus and former member of the White Fang. Again, I know it's personal preference, but I prefer they treated this moment seriously the whole time. Keep in mind that I'm okay with having comedy. Shonen is also a genre with funny moments, and I'm a fan of many shonen series. However, they also know when to be serious instead of having a gag thrown in to try to be funny. This argument gave more depth to both characters and deserved to be taken seriously during the whole thing. There are other things I liked, but I'll hold off on that until I do a review after the season finale. Now, I want to be fair and point out what I disliked about the series. So where did this drop the ball? One of the major flaws is that the first 3 episodes are trying to cram most of Volume 1 from the original. At the same time, they're trying to fill in new things while cutting out old things. It's not just small things either. It's important things like the fight from Volume 1's finale. In the original, we got to see Sun and Blake fighting off Torchwick and the White Fang. We also see Penny fight after Rwby gets knocked out during that. Again, this was in the finale of Volume 1. However, this whole fight is skipped over in the anime. We see Blake going in to start the fight, and Rwby reacts to the sound of a gunshot. However, we only see the fight's aftermath when Torchwick is flying away. We also see Penny's blaze as she's walking in front of flames, and then jumps in the air. It feels like they didn't want to reveal Penny's fighting ability yet, but at the same time, that feels impossible since we did see this fight in Volume 1. The only way we wouldn't know about it is if you never watched Volume 1. And why wouldn't you if you were curious about it and it was available on YouTube? This fight isn't the only thing skipped over in the series either. In Ice Queendom, they introduce a new type of Grimm that is inside your mind and feeds off your negative emotions. We see it take over John and it puts him into a coma. The only way to wake him up is for the people closest to him, in this case his team members, to go into his mind and rescue him. However, this is skipped over as well. I am more understanding with this one since Weiss is also affected by this Grimm, and I feel like they just wanted to tease it before Team Rwby has to do this. However, it was annoying because I like Team Juniper and would have loved more time to focus on them. Again, I understand them doing that in this case, but it does add to the feeling of rushing so much in a short amount of time. Overall, it feels like Shaft was in a difficult position. It feels like the studio wanted to retell critical parts of the story, but at the same time, they wanted to do their own thing, like introducing a new type of Grimm and a new character that hunts them specifically. Sometimes things like that can conflict, making it feel like they should have tried telling this in more than 3 episodes. So at the end of the day, is Rwby Ice Queendom worth giving a chance, regardless if you're a new fan, someone who's been there from the beginning, or someone who used to be there and left? Honestly, I think it's worth giving a chance. Again, my only major complaint is that it felt rushed, but I'm willing to believe that was because they wanted to retell Volume 1 in a short amount of time. The rest of the series may feel rushed, but I'm trying to be optimistic about where the series goes from here, and it is a possibility that the rest of the series won't feel as rushed. At the same time, there are things I already love about this series, like how they introduced the characters in Episode 1. I can see some people not being a fan that it's more serious, but I think it can still be enjoyable to those same people. Yes, I said I prefer more of a serious tone. However, I did enjoy the original at one time, and it does have a more comedic tone. If you're like me and slightly curious, you should check out the first 3 episodes. They hooked me into Ice Queendom, and I'll finish it to see how it plays out. Will I regret it? I'll let you know when I do a full review once the season wraps up. And those were my first impressions of Rwby Ice Queendom. I usually wait till the finale of a series or season to talk about it, but I wanted to give my initial thoughts on Ice Queendom since I used to be a fan of Rwby. Not sure if this will be a regular thing moving forward for my channel, but I'm happy I was able to make this video. As always though, I'm interested to hear what all of you think. What are your thoughts on Rwby Ice Queendom? Do you think it will be better than the original series? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to see more of my content in the future. I'm Marco Strange. Stay safe, stay strange.